We thought you guys must have mixed your names numbers. He told my tour of my dragons. My young child.
Makarno yamcha ke taima. Ite mata I te tangata rā nā nōna te pare. I tāki nei. Ui, me mai ke hao mai. Oh, ye, yamcha.
Errol, very good. Eric. I piki mai te pōra. And so go, kei reira nā tāngata e kai ana I tō whareira.
That was pretty good. That was so we keep saying the same thing. Yeah.
Have you decided on it?
I don't know yet. It's either in the town or Auckland, but
Because that's only 2 hours. Is it 2 hours from Western? Yeah, it's not far. Yeah.
then I've got scholarship.
Kia ora tātou, tēnei rā, aroha mai, e hika mā, koutou, inoho atu ki wahora. Engari, te mea nui, ko tae mai koutou, ki te whakarono ki ngā kōrero, mō tō tātou whare nei, mō te whakaaturana, tā Derek, moana mahi nunui, I oti aia, I roto I ngā whāte koutou. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi nui kia koutou ko hara mai nei I tēnei rangi. Nō reira, kia ora tātou. Mua I tā tātou tīmatana I ngā kōrero nei, ka tuku nātu e paku whakamoemiti hei tīmata ke I tā tātou kōrero. Nō reira, kia inui tātou. O nō reira, he maunga wanu ki te whenua whai ki ngā tānu. Oa ame. Hei mua koe I a mātou e goe I tōtou I a mātou mahi koto. Koe no he whakakahe I a mātou kia whai kōri au koe I a mātou mahi koto. Mea tīmata e mea mahi, mea whakaotiri o te ia koe. Kia whiwhi ai tunu mātou ki te onuna tunutanga. Ki te mea ia tawhaitia nei mātou tēnei rā. Rōre, te onuna tapu. Āmi. Kia ora e woma. Thank you for coming into this gallery here. And to also listen to Derek give his kōrero on the pieces that you see here. Just in terms of this gallery, this is something that we put together in 2017 as an opportunity for all to exhibit their works within here. So the first ones that came in here to use the space was the Uhi Amataora back in 2017 during the British and Irish Lions tour. So Duhi saw, and Duhi is actually chaired by Derek, and it's a kaupapa that's been going on since the 1980s. They formally became a group back in 1991, and you know, the kaupapa of moko has thrived since then. It's thrived so much that, you know, the art that's been incised on the skin is prolific throughout Aotearoa. There's no doubt about it. It was on the brink of being lost, and people such as Derek, Mark Opua, Ricky Manuel, all those who were at the top of their game brought that art form back to life there. And now I can really say, and I've even heard Derek say this as well, is that some of their pupils that they taught way back then have probably surpassed where they were back in their time. So that's actually whakaara Māori tērā, because if the student doesn't outclass the actual tohuna, there's something wrong there. And boy, I tell you, it's so diverse now that it's well, I think it's in a good space at this point in time, but with Te Uhia Mataora, they're there to channel, to make sure the tikanga is in place, to make sure kei te tikanga mahi I waihohia I ngā mātua tīpuna. Because without that mātauranga, without that knowledge, and without that understanding, ka tino he nei te kaupapa ne. It's not there as an aesthetic form, it's there because it represents who we are as a people, who we are as a culture. So, we don't know te pito kōrero kia tātou e kamā. No reira, ka tuku nātu, te wāhana kōrero pia, kia tāwera. Māna tonu e whakamārama te āhuatanga o te whakāturanga nei. Just to give you an insight, I'll let the curator, Tāwera, explain how she set out this exhibition here. And after that, Derek will follow up. Kia ora tātou.
Rere ana ngā awa, manga maia, manga papa, ukokumuka, tūhora tia ki te awa o manga tū. Tū mai te pautoko mano a Rāwari Tamanui, ko te wharenui, ko te ngāwari. Ko tāwara tahiri ahau, no te iwi o ngā riki kaiputahi, no whakatohi ahau, no Ngāti Uenuku, no tūwharetoa, no whatu aputi hoki ahau. No reira tēnei te mihi atu. Tāwera Tahuri, my government name is Venus. Yeah, I like to say that now because I was blessed to learn Maya Te Tupua in my first year at Tui Haukura as a student. It was the first Mōteatea that I learned, and I would say I went in unwilling. In fact, I got a growling. As usual, I always get growlings. But I was upstairs and my peers were like, hey, Dee said you have to go downstairs to Mōteatea, and I was like, I can't need to go. I didn't come here to sing. And then, and so anyway, I went down begrudgingly, and then I was awakened to he ao hau, and it became one of my greatest passions. And so that was the first Mōteatea I learned under Derek's tutelage. And in it is a reference to ko tāwera, ko miriarehi. Venus has many names, i te reo Māori. Tāwera references Venus in the morning. And I was actually born in the morning around about 6 o'clock. So, Papa D basically said tāwera, and then you don't really argue back then. You don't, you just sort of do it. And then everyone just sort of started calling me tāwera. So I've been called tāwera since my first year at Tui Haukura. And I feel that that was an honour because it marked the first Mōteatea that I learned, and that seed was planted. Yeah, so that's what brings me here today, really, is to give back to my mentor. I was honoured to, I had the privilege really of being able to curate this. I'm not a curator by any means, I'm an artist. I'm just a creative, sometimes crazy creative, but I'm creative all the same. But I really enjoy indigenising spaces and kaupapa. And so Tū Takawhiti is the second of 2 retrospective survey exhibitions. The first one is Tinana, which is currently on exhibition at Te Pūwaha Gallery in conjunction with the Tairawhiti Arts Festival. And there are 36 stunning life drawings in that show, which celebrate Tinana. And it also draws reference to the importance of the tinana when you work in tāmoko. And that understanding the human form is really important when you're applying moko to the skin and to our tinana. And so for me, when I was initially asked, I was excited because I recently retired from full-time teaching, 22 years. I'm proud to say that I gave it my all, but I realised that it just it's still part of the system, and the bureaucracy is the same, and I just felt stifled as a creative. So being given this opportunity, it was like, yes, oh yes, I can be creative, and at the same time lead to my kaiako and his beautiful wife. So Tinana is that show that opened on the 6th, and we had a performance component as well, performance art, and we had 4 live nude models, Māori, beautiful, comfortable in their own skin, Māori models who would basically fill the space with their Māoriness. And so when people walked in, it was like, whoa, because I had juxtaposed them on these like Victorian couches, which were painted like bright blue. And so that was a reference really to our rangatiratanga. So they were stunning, and so they were in performance mode for 2 hours. Like they just stayed in, in role. And then that was followed by 2 nights, probably never to happen again. But 2 life drawing classes taken by Derek himself, which were amazing. We didn't know about this side of Derek. Well, we sort of did, but we didn't realise the expanse of the whole thing. So these 5 works here, which are from that series of work. But if I go back now to Takawhiti, Hine Te Uru Takawhiti is a lake, a sacred lake on Hikurangi. And in that lake is submerged the sacred waka of Maui, the shapeshifter. And for Pavadi, it was the references to basically taking, keep moving with your creativity, and when sometimes creative change is necessary, and we need to like grab it with both hands. So Tū Takawhiti speaks of that, of creative change, and not to be afraid of it, and to just grab it with both hands. So we met at the door with the glass panel, and on there 12 corded designs in rose gold, and they are taken from a laser cut, some of Derek's more recent or contemporary digital work, and here's a little panel which is laser cut. So I took a portion of that design and just repeated it. I sort of stopped at 12 and I was going to finish it off, but then I thought, no, I think I actually like how it just stops. There's like a horizon. And then, so that's a whittle. That's a whittle. That's a 21st century whittle. Sometimes we, like Rukupo, he was presented with a steel nail from the colonizers' ships, and he realized that if he sharpened it, he could get more high relief for Kaido. And so we have Takawhiti, we have these amazing representations really of our whakapapa. So technology is really important, and it's part of our process as creators. When we have new technology available to us, we have a responsibility as creators to pick it up and run with it, and at least have a tutu with it. So that challenge meets us. And so if we look at the ritual of encounter, that's how we were taught to hang a show. We have our challenge, and then when you come in on the left up on the wall is whiku, a carved whiku. And that was carved by Derek in 1974. My husband was just born then. I was 4 years old. Yeah, I'm older than Henry. Really. I was just sticked into that one, didn't I? Yep, but that was one of Papa D's first carvings under the tutelage of Nani Moni Taimane. So it's a special piece. And for me, that is a nod, a reference to Te Ao Tawhito and to those teachings which came through Nani Moni to Papa D and then down to us. So that's why that piece is there. And then ahead of us we are greeted by Nani Queenie Moea. And she is, for me, she is an icon. And she is a wahine who gives you the courage, and she encourages you to step outside of the box. And so when I approached her, hey, I had asked what about we have a hologram, because COVID means that we might not be able to have certain people here. And I said, but what if we get a hologram, and then we can have the karanga there, and then we don't have to impact on her time. She can be here pretty much for years, because we'll capture her in this way. And so and further on for that, and talking with Nani Queenie, she was like, yes, that's a brilliant idea. And then she started to talk about a lot of the marae up the coast that are bereft of ahika, kai karanga, vai kōrero. And so it struck us that, hey, this might be a 21st century solution. Until we can get those kai karanga and speakers there, ātinana, this might be another way to tend to that fire. Not so much in a box, because they come in all different shapes and sizes. You can make them however you like. So that's how that came about. And so at the beginning, the mana was a kōmako. And we felt that really epitomised Nani Queenie and her role, how she dances around. Yeah, she's Te Queenie o ngā Queenie. And when you come in the door, we look from left to right. So we start in this corner here, and there's a piece there, and it's called Flight. And if you look carefully, it actually looks like people in flight. And in fact, I think it's probably a representation of Lee Gibbs. That's a collaboration by Papa Derek and Steve Gibbs. Steve is another important tutor in our early lives as emerging artists. He was another mentor and teacher, and a very, very close friend of Papa D. So I felt that was really important to have that piece in here as well. They did it at Ireland in the early 80s, 84, 85. And Steve did the drawings, and at that time I think he was dating, was he dating or married? Dating Lee Gibbs, and she was a silver fern then, so yeah, that's her painting. And Papa D was that master printmaker, so that's a lithograph. And if you understand the process of lithography, it's done on a stone, a special stone that basically you can only get so many, very small editions, because you have to clean the stone off and then you lose that image forever. So it's one of a very few, quite a few of these lithographs in here are very small editions. So the owners are very lucky to have them. And then on this wall here, you're presented with the 5 life drawings. So there's lithograph, drawing, lithograph, drawing, lithograph. The second to last drawing is also watercolours. And those are all from 1983 through to 84. And they were during the time of Ilam, when Derek was a top student at Ilam in Canterbury. And of course, you wouldn't normally associate Derek with life drawing. Most people, when you say Derek, they straight away think of tamoko, kapahaka, te kapa o pano, and you know, a lot of this contemporary art form that you see today. But few of us were lucky enough really to be in the presence of some of these original works, such as the ones that are in Tinana today. And again, that expression for me is my favourite one. I have two favourites actually. So there's the second one there. I actually blew her up, and she's at the in Tinana on covering the whole wall. Yeah, I love that piece. And there's another one at Tinana that's sort of, I like to imagine it's me.
Go, girl.
Like the lines, you know. Yeah, and then we come around the corner here, and then we have a digital print. The digital print is what's called e hine, but Nanny Queenie, we gave her a framed print, and she was so excited, and she went, "Oh, it's me! He painted me!" And so I just giggled to myself because, you know, it's in purples, naughty as. And so she's just totally stoked. So, well, second, that's Nanny Queenie. But she symbolises really the contemporary nature of our art forms. And I remember as a student, Derek was always, he had said one time in one of his lectures, what is contemporary today will be in 100 years, 50 to 100 years time, traditional. And so we've got to always push those boundaries. But you always need to, you always look back in order to move forward, right? So that's the beauty of our Māoriness, really. And then here we have another 2D relief piece. And it actually looks like metal, but it's wood. And so if you go back to our wheku from 1974, when you come around here, straight away you're hit with other examples of whakairo. And so there's this beautiful sequential process that you can see from the beginnings in 1974 to today, our whatu out there. So there's lots of different mediums, native wood, contemporary mediums, MDF, and so on. So I really wanted to reference that, but also there are some beautiful assemblage relief works which incorporate steel and other materials as well. So that represents that. And this wall here behind Papadi and Papatamaho, we have 8 digital print representations, and I played around really with mirroring the edges, so the edges are a mirror of the front, which I was, you know, first of all I was really concerned about it, and I was like, ooh, so I showed Papa, what do you reckon about these? And he said that he was all good with it, so I was all good with it. But I love colour. These are some of my favourite works. Anything with heaps of colour and it's like primo as far as I'm concerned. So that's a representation really of Derek's prowess in Procreate and his iPad.
Procreation.
But you know, it's really it takes a lot to get your head around that that app of that process, because you have to work in layers. There's so many layers, and sometimes you can get lost. So yeah, I was like, wow, Papa D, you just give him something new, and man just handles it. Big mana, tōna.
missed out, that's why.
And in this corner, so when I came to the space was white, and I was like, how am I going to work this space? Because it was kind of different, you know. So I thought, okay, that's actually, we're going to enhance that. And so we come to the colours. The colours that I chose are uku, the alto colours, uku and te pō. But I actually had resin mix them in lumber cider, because I really only have used lumber cider, brought up on it. And so I know the properties and how it dries, etc. So these are alto colours, and they were mixed by resin paints. And so the uku for me, I've tied it back. I made this to connect it to that wall there, and that was to take us back to the whenua, you know, to where we sort of began. And there's also a slight yellow tinge to it, so you know, te whenua whangara. In fact, when I looked at the colour chart, it was a little bit yellower than it actually is, but then it worked out really well because I also tried to pick up on all the tones that are in a lot of the works here. So on that wall we have two amazing lithographs. Excuse me, Mr. Robley, may we have our taonga back, which was probably one of the most profound works of that time, and we all know who Mr. Robley is and what taonga is being referenced. And Pawhiti's kaiako. My name, I keep not good with names.
From where?
The teacher. From Ireland.
Barry Cleveland.
Barry Cleveland. Gosh. Barry Cleveland. The amazing black Barry Cleveland, who actually said, anyone can draw a torso, show me the hands and feet. And so that's kind of one of the catchphrases that tinana, and that, yeah. So he was a very influential and important person in Derek's journey. And so he stated that that piece there, it's a jawbone, was very significant in its time. And there's not many of those. There's a very low edition as well. And it's been hand coloured as well. So that's what I love about etchings and lithographs, is that you can put so much movement into it. So next to him is our papa ruatapu, te pauritanga o ruatapu. That is probably one of the most iconic pieces that I was exposed to as a student. And I remember we used to go to Pawhiti's place on Wednesday nights for kabaka practice at the beginning. We used to go into the garage, and the odd time when we were allowed inside, that was hanging in the hallway. And I remember thinking, whoa, is that pencil? Had no idea what a lithograph was, but we would just be like amazed at this piece. And so that had to come in the show because not only because of who it is, but also the kaupapa, you know, why he's, you know, that's pauritanga. And there's a whole history and whakapapa behind that. But that's also my connection to my nanny, who married Te Hira, who was a grandson of Tamane, and she was Ngāti Kumahi and Hawiti, Mere Kahuri. Yeah. So onto this wall here, te pō, the colour is also a reference to, and actually I was, Pawhiti had said, oh yeah, that's like the colour of charcoal, and in my mind I was like, yes, that's what I was thinking. It just like totally validated that, but that was a reference to the te uhi. These uhi, this series, to me is one of the most significant series of works for us, you know, because we were around in the early days of that movement, the tāmoko movement, and the revitalisation, reclamation of it. And so this series to me is one of the really important ones because it marks that time. And so this colour references the charcoal, which was also used as a colour. Auntie June Grant, and so we're so happy to be able to use this one. Weighs a ton, and so we had to get creative with the walls. The walls are quite thin, and so made a plinth. And if you're a carpenter, don't look closely at my carpentry skills. Yeah, by no means am I a carpenter, but if I have to do something, I'll try and get it done. And so that worked fine because all the weight's on there. To Takawhiti here, I actually have a cutter. You should get you a cutter, mate. You save money. Yeah, he needs a cutter. Vinyl cutter. They're about $800 for a really good one. But I use the rose gold really as a reference to Auntie Rose. Because Auntie Rose has been there from day one. You know, we kind of grew up with her. Had my kids with her. Our kids used to play together in Toi Haukura even. But Auntie Rose was also really an integral part of our lives because her and Tādi started up Whare Tākaro. And that, to me, that was like groundbreaking. We were taking our kids out of the kohanga movement, even though kohanga movement is very important, let me get that clear. But the emphasis on Whare Tākaro was on play, learning through play, and I'm all about that. And so, yeah, Auntie Rose has been just there. And so this piece here is hers. This was made by Papadi for Auntie Rose for their 20th wedding anniversary. And it's kind of like reflected on to this tukutuku, Paparuru. And he's there because when we came in, he's the whai kōrero. And for me, this tukutuku is very significant because Papadi held this when he won Kaitātaki o te ao. And lots of, lots of very important kaupapa with Matatini. The Retrospective Exhibition, there's a few iconic photos that he's holding there. And it's handmade, he made it to take overseas, and it's actually all wood. Because when you travel, you can't take bone. And so it looks like bone, eh? But, yeah, so that's why I thought, that's just innovative as. And that's a redo at the end. So that's why that piece is there. And so like all good kai kōrero, you've got to have a backup. So Auntie Rose has always had Papadi's back. And then it's also a reference to the Whatu series there. Whatu Manawa is the name of that big round piece out there, which is a predominantly newer piece, and it's just come back from Waiheke Island, the exhibition there. And so that, for me, represented Papadi. And so he's like, overlooks everything, and he's looking at his darling Rose, and in turn, she's reflecting the love back to him. So that's why that's rose gold. See, that's a long story just to explain why I use rose gold. I felt it necessary. Got to give the ups where it needs to go. So that's why. And because we always use black. We're always using, I thought, how about we use something else? It just really grounds us to the whenua. There's a video here that was made by my husband. Which actually, when I sat down and watched it properly, I just couldn't stop laughing because it was like typical of Tā Derek students at Boys High. And it just brought back some really cool memories. And because I had a different video, which was a little bit more professionally done, and my husband goes, oh, just casually, well, have a look at this one. I did this with my assignment for my BMPA. He went and did Bachelor of Māori Performing Arts a couple of years ago. Just a tautoko maiwi actually. So he goes, well, have a look at this, and when I looked at it, I was just like, oh, we're going to use that. It just felt right. But it's an overview really of Papadi's success through our eyes as his students. This little piece here was one of the first prints that Papadi did, just up there. It's actually untitled. But I think he said it was one of, there was this piece in a Manaia, it's a green, which I did find, but it wasn't framed, and I had to make a decision. There's like literally hundreds of prints, and so I had to choose the ones really that I could reflect and associate with, and the ones that I liked. which brings me to these assemblages, 1, 2 and 3. I love these pieces. Innovation, you know, as creatives, we all go to op shops, we all go to those, you know, flea markets and, you know, those antique shops, because there's always treasures. And as a lot of us do, we create new things out of all these treasures. So assemblage work is like up there for me, and I really love these pieces and how Pavadi is transformed them. And grateful to the collectors who have loaned them to us. And this middle wall here is a plate. That's the etching plate at the top, and then down the bottom here is, I can't read it, I'm so blind. Oh yes, I forgot. Arukura. And isn't that a gorgeous print? I found the plate, there was a few plates in amongst all of the works that I was cataloguing, and I thought, oh, we need to frame these, so I thought that those two together would be perfect, just to show process as well, and the result. And again, low editions. Most of these works were borrowed from, or loaned from private collections. This waka assemblage actually was created really as a response to the Tuia 250 celebration. And I know, you know, people like Pavadi, they're up there, and you know, I know his heart, and we know how Pavadi feels about colonisation, because we were taught that, and we respect his stand and the response that he's made there. And I saw this in the studio, and he was like, that thing, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. So yeah, that's very important really as a marker for that event. On the other wall there are some more lithographs from etchings, sorry. And those are from 83, 84, yep. And again, the whole, his use of light and tone to bring out these faces. So I put those two together because of that relationship really with the face. And the waha, you know. That oral transition, that transmission of knowledge is really important, so that's why I put that there. On that far wall in the silver frame is a handwritten kapao papa, and that was written in 2017? 2007. And yes, and they in Pavadi had gifted that to their amazing Roger Drummond. Yeah. And yeah, what a treasure to have that. Handwritten, yeah, at the same time that it was created. So that's there in a reference really to all that work that Pavadi has done with Air New Zealand, with Couple Panel. You know, there's so many public arts projects and significant architectural influences as well in Aotearoa, which are a result of Derek's amazing abilities. The last piece there is Namanini Aroa, and for us, when we were students, I remember that story in particular, and the story of Kawikura, and the story of the Te Tainga Mai o Te Kumara ki Aotearoa, through Kahukura and Rongoiamo and Toi, and their journey back to Hawaii to get to Tiki Ngā Kumara. But another version is Namanini Aroa Kapana, Kōrero, but these birds are really significant to us, Tumharangi and Harongarangi, because they also, for me it was like it gave you that sense of achievement and that anything was possible. If it's going to be, it's up to me, you know, and that sort of always, that image for me, just, it really empowers me. Sometimes you just got to spread your wings and go for it. And it inspired some etchings that Henry and I did at Waiakali Carving House at Evergreen State, at the Longhouse, which was then created, turned into a blanket. But essentially, that piece is iconic, and there's not many of them. I think, what, 5? Very few. So, but you know, he too took 3D for the loan of that. And he is very proud of that. And as are many of the owners of these works. Nō reira, koera tāpū, just mihi a moti me tāpū to work for the opportunity. For me to spread my wings a bit more, learn some more skills. I mean, again, by no means am I a curator, but for me, to have my curatorial skills validated by someone like Darcy Nicholas last night was like up there. I was really taken aback, and he said if I had known you, we were looking for a curator at Pātaka, I was just like, wow. I said, well, just about using colour and just using your artist eye really to indigenising, working in an indigenous way. Yeah, so that was like huge. That was like massive. On top of what I already received from Tādi and Auntie Rose. Nō reira, that's me. I've talked way too long. E kore koe tai mai te rau takitahi me tuku ki te karere kia tai mai te wiwini kia tai mai te wawana kia tai mai te ariki koro ngata ki tō whenua nei e tēnei hoki au te keke ho atu nei kei runga hawarua e ia e te ika e takoto nei e kei raro.
Tēnā ngā wāts koe tāwera mō I whakamahano mai. Te āhuatana o nā mahi whakairo, whakairo I te kōrero, hei whakarorotana mā tātou I tēnei haora, nō reira tēnei ka mihi nui kia koe. E koma, so these are some of the exploits of Derek. Something else I'd like to add before I asked Derek to stand up and kōrero. So before I came here to Point Māori, and I've worked in here for the last 15 years, but before that I was working at the National Museum at the Papatona Rewa. Part of my mahi over there was dealing with the repatriation of tipuna Māori from institutions all over the world. Now part of that required mātauranga Māori from people such as Derek and Uhi Mataora to give validation to what our tipuna have within the walls of Te Papa there. And one of the things I've always picked up over the years, every time they have their wānanga in the Wāhi Tapu area, with those who are knowledgeable and actually practice the skill of moko, is that the kōrero always comes up amongst them when they have their wānanga, is that they can't seem to replicate the precise designs that were used by these uhi, by chisels. They can't replicate with the modern technology that they have in today. So that says something about the skill and the artistry of our tipuna back in that time. And that's something that I've heard quite often from the likes of Derek and all those of his ilk. So, look, e homa, now I'll pass the raka over kia tā Derek, no reira, kia ora Derek.
Milo. I was looking at that print, ngā manunua rokapanga. When you become too involved in the art piece and you lose track of whether the perspective of that art piece is correct or not. Because in my mind, it needed to be a hakuwai. It needed to be a hokioi that could carry a human being. And yet it looks like a sparrow. So it disappointed me on the part, it looks like a sparrow, it doesn't look awkward. So that's when you lose perspective of what you're doing, because you're too close to the surface. You should be moving away and looking at things from another perspective. So you see it for what it is. But I was thinking as you're talking, ngā tua koi koi a te hakuwai, anake. The talons of the eagle, as they tō pāpa, ia māwe mahi ane i tana peha. Hoki mai ki taku kāinga, karia i moe, ki hai i moe. E whākana mai ona whatu, ka ki mai ia e moe āna, ka hala mai hakuwai. Ka ngaua ki ona pōwhiwhi, ka hige nei ki te rangi. Mai te reira ki te atai tona huarahi. I te pō, i te ao, i te pō, i te ao. Ka ngaua ki tona ngākau. Nā reira ka huri ki te whakarei i ona wāwai, ki ona paituri, ka tai ki ona pōnā nei, a ka whairohia ki ngā tua koe koe o takuwai. So the designer and his knees were grabbing into his knees to make sure he didn't fly off on me when we were working together, because he had that ability to leave his body. Ia māwe mahi ana, ka hemo ai i te moe. E ka hemo kātai ka ngaro te wairu. Kia tai ai e te mahi ngā mai. Ka mutu te mahi kia tai, e hoki mai ki tō tinana. E ka hala mai a piri ki tōna tinana. Whakau ki tōna tinana, kātai ka ofa, matakomu ngā whatu. Koe nā te pai o tēnā mōmo tangata. E he awa no tōna. E he awa ngā tīpuna. Tarea ia te huki atu ki ona tīpuna i reira noho tai. A ka mana aki ia te kaupapa. Mai tērā taho o te aho. And that aho, that string line, was what Moni had taught me. That he'd been trained by a korua, Hone Ngatoto, who was a traditional carver from the Iwirako schools of carving. He put a string line up in their house and said, you can take anything you want, but you're never to cross the string line, because this is my world. And when I die, I will take my tapu with me, and you will be free. So the string line still exists today when we do our art, really. And one of the main string lines for me, it was this piece. I first saw that image of a jaw, a carved jaw, in the early 70s, was in a book called, is it just called Moko? By Robley, Major General Robley. And it struck me that there was this man with trophies in behind him. Yeah, upoko tipo, mō kai, me wete atu tāonga. And it struck me, what is he doing with them? And why did he take them with him when he went away and took our tipuna, a very dark passage in our time, where tipuna were traded, a means of getting muskets, one head, one gunboat. So it struck me that from those early 70s, this type of thing was starting to get into me. By the time I got to art school, I started to make prints, and if you look at the prints, they become incised. They're almost like they're the closest, in particular on that print, they're the closest that you can get to actual moko that our people know, where they used the chisel, because it indented into the print and it elevated the moko into another position. So it's three-dimensional. It's the closest you can get to what our tipuna called whakairo kiri. And for me, it meant that I needed to look closely at the body. Hence, the study of the human form was about looking at form, looking at space, looking at the three-dimensional movement of the body, and the placement of the rape. Where did you put it and how you placed it actually accentuated the movement of that particular part of the body. So there's a whole set of positive, negative balances going on. So learning about the human form was all part and parcel of learning about how these people place their patterns. So all of my life drawings became the base point for my moko revival, because it had started from when I was a child. There were kuia that had, in particular, one of them was very fair. Kanoho whiripapa, ngā kuia, manu tuke. Although I'm strongly whangara, I've got this other side. And they are hugely creative people called Rongo Whakata, Ngāti Guapani, Mahaki, Tamanui. And their ability to pull things out of the fire, out of the charcoal, out of the flames and make the bird, it's like almost like a phoenix. They have this ability to grab things and push them into another space. So there are a tribal group of shapeshifters, and that's who Cook ran into in 1769, with these shapeshifters who knew how to move shapes into other spaces and weren't afraid to go forward and grab something off that gunboat and make it theirs. So you got the ruku paws, as been mentioned. Then you got the te kote arikirangis and the hahi, the ringa too, how they grabbed the Bible and reversed it and made it theirs, and spoke into it, and then didn't need the Bible anymore because they'd internalized it. And then it came out in this method of delivery that frightened the shit out of everyone, because it was so deeply Māori. And that ability to take something like that and push it into a space that where it shouldn't survive and give it oxygen and let it breathe. But that streamline was the oxygen line. Even if it was just one person's string of hair, there was oxygen in there that could invigorate something from te pō and bring it back into Gao. For me, that streamline from that was a man called Te Kani Puata, a koroua that was living in Whareroa Marae, which is under siege at the moment because they're being poisoned. Now, Te Kani was the last thread that we had to Tame Puata, who reinvigorated tā moko last century and did 70% of our women, our kuia, throughout the motu with a needle and thread. So this is his son talking when I went to him to say, ko tai mai tētahi reta kia, ki haere au ki rā wahi ki te ako I tēnei me te pāpau. I te uhi, me mai I kia hara te rei te uhi. Ko te uhi no te whenua tipu mai ai, no ringa ringa tonu. E timo manu nui ho tēnā, tō toho no te ngākau, no te hao o te ngākau, no te kaitangata, no reira tēnā mō. So there's a whole section of that streamline being looked at, and how do you address the sacred nature of what we're doing today, and how do you make it safe so that the rangatahi can move with it into another space. And from that time in the early 70s through to when I did this print at art school, I then became involved with Karanga Aotearoa through one of our kuia here, and the importance of Toi Māori, Aotearoa, Te Auwe Davis, who was on that committee at that time, but due to her becoming quite frail, she asked if I would sit on this committee called Karanga Aotearoa, which is now chaired by Tamaho's dad. And not that long ago, a few years ago, the greatest thing that I'd seen come out of this print, the greatest privilege I had, was to be involved in the repatriation of all of those tipuna, including these tonga that were in the robbery collection in America. Yeah. So it had gone full circle. That's what that print was about. And I was honoured and humbled to be part of this print, because it made me realise, stay in there, stay in the grooves, stay in the trenches, no matter what happens, stay in those trenches. There's a job to be done. And if you don't do it well, guess who's going to be waiting on the other side when you get there? Te Auwe Davis. Now the gunboat. Let's have a little talk about the gunboat. What's the gunboat got to do with anything? The gunboat was my protest even against my own for participating in something that I considered not quite sitting right with me as a person. And the event surrounding the landing of Cook in 1769, and the raising of his flag on our land, our people, and the ability for him to reinvent himself and come forward 200 years later and present himself to me and still point his gun at me. Considering what happened that day, the coxswain on the Endeavour was a man by the name of Byron. He shot our tipuna for no reason than miscommunication. The tipuna's name was Te Maro. Te Maro's father was Pāpakia, who had married a woman by the name of Wahine Whakatipuna. Te Maro lost his life. He had children, but that line had died out. Te Maro's younger brother was Ringi Ringiwai, who had Enoka Kaiwhiri, who had Heni Kurukuru, who had the Apikara, who had Te Wii, who had me. Let's go back to Apikara. Her older brother was Tiki Tiki Orangi, and that's my cousins that sit here. And their auntie's name is Wahine Whakatipu. We are the carrier of the puna. Puna hai hai tangine, mata tangine. So that's why I made that. It was really just for myself to say, stay in the boat, stay in the trenches, you're right, it's all good. So there's a lot in terms of what Tāwera has done is grabbed a section of time, and for me to blink and look at it is to go, geez, you've done a great job. Yeah, but we'll finish off Queenie Moiha, e patu paere. No tētai atu ao, no ngā maunga, no te maunga tu, no hikurangi tu tēnā kuia. She should be 100 feet tall because that's how much she carries. A woman that has the ability to float. And that's what I loved about the hologram. Oh, well, you know, because she can do that literally. But at times when she turns, ka huri ai hei tāne, e wahine kai hautu, no te ao kawhito tēnā momo. I enei rā, oe te wahine ka tū ki te whaikoro. E pai, e ngeri, e rere tau tēnā momo, e heke mai e hine matiora. I materoa, I tāwhi pare, e tātākura, I hamotare, tērā momo wahine. I mai duunga mai o tō tātou tipuna pai kia ki uta. Mā hea koe i mai ki uta ka mea te tukau ki arata, I hara mai au I rungi te tuara o taku kōkā. Pēni a wau I tarane, I hara mai au I rungi te tuara o taku kōkā ko Kuini Moia. Koe o taku ara ki te ao maramane. That's how I look at that kuia. And it's fortunate that in a modern world, we've got people like that that are still alive and can breathe. They're precious. Every breath they take, we've got to take the opportunity to learn from them. I think that's about it. This is having a play. I don't know how to use that machine. I had to get Henry Brooking. Henry, show me how to put the thing on. Show me how to do it. Yeah, turn it on. Right, let's have a play. So that's really just play. You can see it pixelates out too much because I don't really know what I'm doing, but I don't really care. It's just that I didn't want the young people to get away on me and I'm falling behind the game. They've gone and shot off one another and I can't keep up. I wanted to show with them I can keep up with them. So that's what that's about. Really trying to keep up with them because they're so inventive, so creative in their minds, and they're so the genius of what they do when they sit together is like an explosion of creative energy that just takes off. That's my way of saying, please let me keep up. But you've got to have that energy, and you've got to have them at that level where they're not afraid to take on the world, because moko is a big world. And you're right, it's been a life-changing experience for us, for Rosa and I, to be part of it. We're a small part of the growing of the taonga, a very small part. But you've got to let it go and let it fly. If you lock it up and think it's about you, that's the thing about letting it go. So it's interesting that we got all these bird figures flying around. So many a pātai wako te tēnā pātai ki amai. You know the neat thing about it, you're going to go online and buy these. You can. It's called a barcode. Go put your phone up, takes that barcode, tells you how brilliant it is and how much it is. Then you push your button, it goes to your bank account. Push your button into my account, and then it sends you the hard piece. Ko te awa hou ai. But it's actually not about that, it's just Takawhiti's genius. To set it up and make the space so indigenous and make it us. You know, as soon as I saw that colour, you can see that colour in the charcoal and the making of traditional inks. It's embedded in that colour. And it's embedded in your skin by those talons of the eagle. Karakia. Ma pātere waiata. It's all got to move together. It's not a present past thing for me. It's continuum, moving. And we'll finish with Roger Drummond. He's a brilliant man. And what he's done for Toi Māori Aotearoa with the making of our waka that is enlightened. And that's the visual reminder to the world and to Europe, those people are still here. And we're capable of bringing our waka and put it in your backyard, see how you like it. And the only thing is, we'll make you pay for that waka, but you don't own it. Did you pay for it? Good. Put some new wheels on it? Good. But no, you don't own it. You don't drive it unless we tell you you can drive it. And nā te takatara, nā wana tui rōia. Koe o tēnā takata ki te whakahaere kaupapa rōia. So that the ownership of the art pieces, whether it be kapa opanga or whether it be the light and waka, remains the property of our people. They have exclusive right of use, but the ownership belongs to us. You can't buy that. You can't buy that type of intellect. But what it does, it safeguards us for the future, because we've got to know that our tipuna and our children to come can go and sit in that waka and say, no ku tēnei, no ku te waka. No tipuna, no te pōrā, no tōtunu, ake, amen. Oh, your dad was funny when we worked on him. Amsteridi was another one. He tohunga, karakia. Ki mai te rātua te karakia. Tōki no te kawanui ko te kawalo, haere tōn te karaka, oh, mai moko, I te ao ki te pō, oh, ka maki te wei. Awa ka tara, hara mai a Amster, ka pātere, e tangi ana, te ao I te pō, haere tōni. Third day, hara mai, kare karakia, kare he aha. Amster, where's your rent? Barbara, boy, get on. Hurry up and saw. So no matter how much karakia and all that, actually, it's got to be in here, and it's got to be in there, and it's got to be deeply embedded. Because that's where the karakia and that's where your soul is going to be going like this. Come on, we can do this. So you got to connect with the person, and you've got to get to a stage where you're sitting on the moon. And when sitting on the moon, koina with the marama korona, where things are at peace with one another, and you can get the job done. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does to me. And the process of moko today is so wide and varied, the materials and the machines, it's just so easy to get something online. Whereas in our days we had to make the needles ourselves. You know, I burnt my fingers so often, it wasn't funny, and then I burnt the carpet because I didn't know that you had to have an adapter to plug into the wall. I didn't know that you had 240 volts. At 240 volts you needed to go down to your machine, go to 3 volts. All I knew was, oh no, I just put a cord on there and plug it from there, and then when I turned it on, it started burnt this big hole, and I said, what's that smell? I said, nothing. What's that smell? Amstel, someone called me. Yeah, dangerous. But I suppose that's part and parcel of being a misfit, being fidgety, and you know, oh, I don't want to try this. And if you look at Henry Brooking, Henry Takawhiti, Shane Nekora, all misfits. All came out of the one pool. Let's have a play. And then let's make something of it so our people can use it. Mena he pātai.
Kia ora tātou.
Te tai.
Ai.
Hei, mo tēnā tātou. It is me tuatai ki a koe tamahau, I taku tuakana, o te whare nei, I te koikoi tātou, te whakarongo, ki o tātou taonga. No reira, he mi kauna ki a koe, me me te whare nei. Nei te wā tuatahi, ko tāmaki tēnei whare, muri toku pāpā, te kuhu mai, te tuki runga, i aia, ai nei, ka hoki ngā mahara ki rātou, ko whetūrangi tia, no reira, ai he ngā kaupai e no i roto i tēnei whare i ngā wākato, no reira, he mihi nui ki a koe. Ai te tuahine, he mihi kona ki tō mahi. I think Māori, we're all curatorial people. You know, I think it's a bit of a colonized, frightening thing to put on us to say, oh, we can't be that and whatnot. But I think we would just have to come up with a new kupu of kai whakawhiti. You know, I arrived on this road with the masses coming into today, and I got transported. You know, and through your whakaaro and your ideas of ngā taonga of puppetries and whatnot, and thank you for that, because I think there's a small group of us that are looking to try and grow in confidence to do tell our stories in our ways, and I think people like Papa Sandy and Papa Darcy, they're always there to, they're brutally honest, you know, and that gives you confidence to be you and to re-indigenize our spaces. And it's led me into spaces of architecture and infrastructure that needs to be decolonized and re-indigenized. So, kia kaha, kia mai, kia mana nui ki a koe. E te tupua, e taku rangatira, he ngā kauiti I roto I tō wānanga, I rongo I tō kōrero, I tō whakaaro, ka hoki mai ki tōku pāpā. He ori te. And ka titiro ki tō taonga, tō sparrow, tō kahu, ka hoki tōku mahara ki a pāpā, I tōna momoia, e toru, ko te momoia tuatahi, kara mai tētahi kahu, ka ngau kia piki ai I rungi I aia I te takiwā o poranga hau, I te momo I tuarua, pera I tēnei whakaua, I noho I rungu I te kahu, and te momo I tuatoru, ko ia te kahu. No reira, he hoki ngā mahara, and then 17 years later, I came to you on the eve of your masters, coming back from Gallipoli. You know, I was so fortunate. I was coming from a place of despair and loss, of personal grief, and to the realization of a young man, the power of our culture and of our identity. And talked to Dad around starting this idea of getting my puhoro and talking to you, and always just feeling very comfortable. And then being in the lines at Tamatea, and I'm a bit Tamatea wheru at the moment, but in Tamatea, and someone goes, oh, when are you going to finish your puhoro? And the Dad just kind of goes, oh, next March. I was like, oh, okay. And that was the quarter of heading down to Christchurch, and being having the privilege of being with you and your whānau as part of that. So those are taonga that our family treasure very greatly. Mum sends her love. And thank you, Rose. I know the power of a strong, beautiful woman to enable and support a person such as Papati to the nation. I know a lady very similar in beauty and in heart that lives in our whare in Porirua. So thank you for keeping the home fires burning, the kids in order. Mokopuna will come, I'm sure of it. But thank you so much for allowing us to have him, and in the same breath, have you also. Yeah, so I'm very, very appreciative of you all. He paku kōrero ki a koutou, just he mihi, ki a koutou. Tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora tata e Roma. Ai, o pai ana te wā, ia
kōrero, hei whakairi ki nei te pakitau pare, o roto toi Māori nei. Bueno, ka katia tō tātai ngā hui, Māori nei te karakia. Āmuri atu I tērā, we might just stack all the chairs up and place them back in the back room there. That'll give you a good chance to have a look around. And after that, please go into the other office there. There's a cup of tea, a bit of a coffee and biscuits and stuff. If you want to just sit down and chat afterwards, after you've had a look around here. So, nō reira, e nei tērā, kia taurā nā manaakitanga te hinaroa, tērā, tēnā o tātou. Kia mahi ara te hua mā kihiki, kia toi te hauara. Toi nā tikana, toi Māori, ka tūturu ofi te whakamaua kia tīna.
Tīna.
Hui e.
Taiki.
Kia ora tātou.
Te koho, te ua, nuku te ua, tara te ua, pata pata I a wha, te wherere I hoi tai o matuku, te wherere I hoi tai o pani, he tapu tapu kirina e te ripi ripi. Te whakarangona atu te ati tipua, te whakarangona atu te ati tahito tīna tōka. Rarau te whekenui a muturangi, tīna tōka, te pari ki Hawaii ki e.
Kia ora tātou.
Sharing that between three. Doing three.
Oh, right, here on my granddad. Oh, I left my shoes here. Two pairs of shoes here.
I think he was recording. Yeah. It's just
Yes,
Ready?
It's the plate to do. Yeah, it's really cool, eh? Is that so? It's actually thinged onto that and then pressed onto that. Is that how you do it, or is that a sketch of that? I don't know. Because it'll be, and then you turn it over.